Hi, Seth David here with schoolofbookkeeping.com, bringing to you another video answer from our answers forum at, you guessed it, schoolofbookkeeping.com. This time we're talking about why would you want more than one accounts receivable? You've got questions, we've got answers. Here we are, schoolofbookkeeping.com in the answers forum, which is available to registered students. Stephanie writes in, Seth, in your video in course 1, your chart of accounts where your transactions live, you mentioned that it's rare to have two AR accounts, meaning accounts receivable accounts. Could you please specify in which instances you would have two? Thanks. And Stephanie had asked this in our SOBI's Facebook group, which is School of Bookkeeping Enrolled Students. It's a group we have that's just for enrolled students. And I asked her to post it here in the forum because I thought it was a good question for everyone to see here. And the quick answer is that anytime you would want to separate accounts receivable for two different purposes, of course, you would have a second or more accounts receivable accounts. I always discourage this practice because it creates confusion on a number of levels. Let's take a look at a QuickBooks file here. We've got $525,000 in outstanding accounts receivable. I've got customer 1 with $150,000 out there and customer 2 with $375,000 out there. And notice they're all in the same single accounts receivable. Well, one example of a situation where we sometimes want to create a second accounts receivable is when we're factoring invoices. And what I mean by that is as follows, and let me back up a second. If I double click one of these invoices, you can see here it's a standard invoice form, right? Nothing terribly earth-shattering here. I've got a service I offer, I'm charging $150,000 for it. But let's go to the chart of accounts and let's create a second accounts receivable. So we'll go to create a new account. And we'll call it accounts receivable. So the type is accounts receivable. And this time we're going to call it factored invoices. No sub-account or anything like that. And notice what's here now on the invoice template. I now have a drop-down where I can choose which accounts receivable it goes to. So if I had made the decision to factor this invoice because I needed to get money in for working capital purposes, then now that I've got it, I would move this over to factored invoices. So I know this is one of the invoices that I've sold to the factor. And it's confirming that I want to record my changes. And now I've got two different accounts receivable under accounts receivable. One is just called accounts receivable. Now, when you do this, what I would also recommend is change this and call it trade accounts receivable or something like that so that you can distinguish. Notice the open invoices report doesn't change because this report is a standard report which is configured to include all accounts receivable. So if you want this to only show this trade accounts receivable, for example, then you've got to customize it. Go into your filters, and under account, instead of all accounts receivable, you would put just the regular accounts receivable in this case, since I haven't renamed it. Click OK, and now I just see the $375,000. Then what I might want to do is run another open invoices report and customize this one for the factored invoices. And then I probably want to rename this and memorize it so that I have these reports in my memorized reports area or reports list. This way, when I need to see quickly what are my open factored invoices versus what are my other invoices that I haven't factored that are open, I can clearly distinguish one from the other. If you just run, as you just saw and as I mentioned, if you just run a standard open invoices report, it's going to include everything, all invoices, regardless of which accounts receivable account it's in, because the default setting is that this report shows all accounts receivable. And hopefully that helps clear up and give you at least one example. If you can think of others, then please post your comments or email me. I would love to hear your feedback now that you've seen this on other situations where you might want to describe different types of accounts receivable on a set of books. As always, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.